Let's have a conversation about the national conversation that's about to happen and what form or shape it should take and why it's important to even have the conversation. Harun Ndubi is currently the co-convener of the Kenya to Itakayo Assembly. He joins us for this conversation. Good morning, Harun.
Morning.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you.
That's the hot seat of the Situation Room. Make yourself comfortable. To welcome you to the conversation, Bonaciti Muga has the day's proverb.
Our proverbs for the whole of this week come from the country of Congo, Republic of Congo. Not DRC, but Congo, otherwise known as Congo Brazzaville. A cat goes into a monastery, but she still remains a cat.
A cat goes into a monastery, but still remains a cat. Harun, that proverb. We are wondering, so what on earth is he saying?
Well, I don't know where he picked it from, but I should imagine that it means really that you may take a fellow from the village, but you will not take the village out of the fellow. Like Charles here.
The village is still in Charles.
Intact. Immovable. Unshakable.
Or unbogable.
You two seem to share some inside jokes.
Well, we've known each other for a very long time. That's often what happens.
That's why this is coming from. He's looking at you and just seeing the same cat. Same old cat.
Exactly.
Same old cat.
Cat in the monasteries hasn't changed a bit.
Okay. Harun, what is Kenya to Itakayo Assembly?
Kenya to Itakayo Assembly is a coalition of civil society actors that are looking at the Kenya that we have aspired for over the years. The Kenya that is not just about power, but a Kenya that is about the Mwananchi Wanjiku, a Kenya that is just, a Kenya that is democratic, a Kenya that is fair, and a Kenya that seeks to make everybody equal and to achieve greater prosperity.
That sounds very much like what Yashpal Guy was told some 20 odd years ago.
Yes, it is indeed, because Yash Guy was told that, we told them, we were told, we also get told because we listen to Wananchi sometimes, even though we are not elected leaders, so to speak. But the trouble is, the people who are managing our public affairs don't seem to be sharing in those aspirations. And in spite of those aspirations being inscribed in our constitution, they fail to do so. So we must continue reminding them, not just the people in leadership, but also reminding the Wananchi that this is what we wanted to be and this is what we need to be. So that we have what you may call in Kiswahili, taifa bora, sio bora taifa.
Sio bora taifa.
No.
If you look at the 60 years of Kenya's independence, and then look at now those ideals that you've said, this is the Kenya to Itakayo. How close are we to achieving that? Are we at 10%, 90%?
There is no perfect society. So you can't say that this is how close we are to achieving it. Perhaps the question would be, how far away are we from what these ideals we're talking about? Then you will see that in spite of the 60 years of political independence, I don't know whether it's really political independence, but the independence of the flag, we haven't moved an inch into achieving these aspirations we are talking about. We got what you have described as independence, we call it independence indeed, by getting the flag, but we replaced the Mzungu flag with our own flag. We replaced the white ruler with black rulers. We continued to apply the same old laws that the Mzungu applied against us, some of which laws and their jurisprudence and their rules and regulations that apply to date. If you look at something like the Public Order Act and you see what the policemen behave like and how they talk to Mwananchi, you see either they are probably just eaten slightly more, look bigger, they have more beautiful uniform, they no longer wear the shorts the askaris of the 60s and 50s wore, but the mind has remained the same.
You know, Harun, and I know Ndu wants to ask a question, but before she comes in, I look back at 2010, August 2010, Uhuru Park, a country that now was saying, you know what, even after so many years of independence, here is finally the birth of the Second Republic, because we have given ourselves a constitution that we have written ourselves in this country, not in Lancaster, not by a small group of people who went there, but all of us participating in writing and giving ourselves this constitution. And yet you're saying we have not moved an inch since 1963?
Eric, let me tell you.
So what was 2010?
Let me tell you something. 2010 was probably what you may call a deferred promise, a deferred hope. We were excited. I personally, with some of my friends like Njeri Kabeberi, Cyprian Nyamwamu, and others you may know, we were doing some assignment in the Republic of Tanzania. But we flew at our own cost to Nairobi to participate on that auspicious day of 27th of August. We were all excited. But I think that promise, which is the deferred promise I'm talking about, was immediately shaken on that very day when we saw the president of Sudan, Bashir, welcomed by our own president when Bashir was shunned by the world for what he had done to other Sudanese. So the question I asked myself then, what is this about? How are we so excited about the new Kenya that we have birthed? And then suddenly, on the date you are celebrating this birth, you are joined by a witch.
Who will steal your soul? Okay.
So you are here now. The village is speaking.
Yes.
So usually, by the time you find a reason, then there must have been some, and even in science, right? There's some physical manifestation of something that makes you ask a question, which then asks you to go back and find the proof. What do you see in Kenya today? What have you seen in Kenya over the last 13 years that would make you say that the promulgation of the Constitution was just that, and then it did not become living and active in the lives of Kenyans? Why would you say that? What have you seen that has made it seem as though, okay, it's a great document, people went around the country, the views of Kenyans were collected, and it was a beautiful document that was put in place, world-renowned, but it's not being practiced, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Why do you say that?
We must go back down memory lane and remember that we had struggles that preceded the enactment of the promulgation of the Constitution. It was not a constitution that we got through sheer willingness of those who were in power at the time. People lost their lives, people shed blood, people sweated. And there are many phases of this struggle that we went through. Unfortunately, the people that were strategically positioned to take over the leadership were not people who believed in that constitution, in the values especially of the constitution. And I would invite you at your free time, I don't know whether anyone has free time really, but to find time to look at the constitution and look at the preamble especially, and look at Article 10, which refers to our values. Read the entire of Chapter 4, which is about the human rights, fundamental freedoms and rights of people. And that through reading of those particular parts I'm talking about, you will see the spirit of the Kenyan people speaking. But this spirit did not possess or was not possessed by the leadership that we have had. And so that when we talk about, a country where people respect freedoms of others, a country which promotes the human dignity of every individual, a country that is supposed to be inclusive, a country that is supposed to be an open society that is democratic. But when you see the instruments of leadership, away from even the individual leaders, you don't see that those instruments, indeed, outside of the Constitution, you don't see them speaking in the same language of the Constitution. But worse is the leaders, because the leaders also, other than the instruments, the leaders need to have some commitment towards achieving or realizing those objectives of the Constitution. But we have a leadership that hardly believes in those spirits, in the spirit of the Constitution, hardly believes in the compulsiveness of the Constitution. They think that the Constitution is a suggestion that they can ignore. They think that power is more powerful than the people. The position of Wanjiku, the citizen of Kenya, has been devalued by the leadership that we have. Yet the Constitution itself upholds and elevates the citizenship, the individual human being, as a Kenyan citizen, to be the one that determines how the leadership behaves. But unfortunately, the leadership is demanding that the citizen behaves in how it itself would wish and how it dictates.
But Harun, never a day goes by when, call them pundits or even practitioners of leadership in this country, will not quote the Constitution. According to the Constitution, Article 347, everybody quotes it every day.
Yes.
So are you saying then that somewhere in the subconscious, the idea of living or working through the elements of the Constitution is alive to many people, but the enactment of it is a fallacy?
There are many people talking about the Constitution, like those the Bible says, not everyone that proclaims the Lord.
The kingdom of heaven.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We have two types, even more perhaps types of leaders. There is the one who proclaims the Constitution because he wants to exercise power in how he sees it and uses or interprets the Constitution suitably to promote his personal interests or his stated interests. And there are those who will quote the Constitution also to correct the one that is seeking to use the Constitution for personal gain. Now, look, an example I would give you. Parliament is provided for in the Constitution. The value of equality is provided for in the Constitution. Sharing of resources, public resources, is provided for in the Constitution. But what do you see? When members of Parliament want to sit in Parliament and increase their salaries, they are unanimous usually. Mm-hmm. When they want to grab all power, they are unanimous. Mm-hmm. But when they are asked to articulate the 2/3 gender rule, or the 1/3 if you wish, they are reluctant. And then they will, quote a lot of, things that they would, put hurdles on the way of that logic. Mm. The other example I would give you is still on the foundation of sharing of revenue and sharing of resources equitably. Mm. Tell me one reason there can be for persons employed by government given the highest jobs of deciding public policy, why we should give them loans to buy cars and houses. And you saw when they were being vetted, they were multimillionaires. And you are giving them loans. Why do you need a car worth 10 million? Why do you need a house worth 35 million, for instance? And I'm referring to the CAS nominees, that though their matter is still in court. How come a young fellow graduate from college or a young employee in a public institution will not be given such a loan. You're told what donate part of your salary to a circle, and then you go to the circle to give you some little loan to get a house, and you can't afford to build a house in Nairobi. You have to go and build it somewhere in the village in Yamira, where I come from. So this is what I'm saying, that if you ask those leaders, they will tell you the Constitution provides for this and that. But their behavior is completely contrary. So the Constitution, without equating it with the Bible, but it could be like, it takes the precedence of the pedestal of the holy books. But there are people who will quote them for their gain, and there are those who will quote them as part of the agitation to improve their lives.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wouldn't you say then that the Constitution was aspirational
Yes.
in intent?
Right.
And then it means that what we are discussing is how we can chart the path and the progress we've made in internalizing the Constitution and in trying to enact it in our day-to-day life. But what seems to come right in the middle of it is something fundamental called human nature. Okay. You know, as you were talking, I was thinking about a country that is always quoted. It's called America. It's always quoted when people are talking about freedoms and so forth. And I'm thinking of a time in history when a British politician called William Wilberforce was fighting to get this matter of slavery, the abolishment of slavery and so forth. That was around 1787. 1776. What happened? America gets independence, doesn't it?
Yes.
From who? From Britain.
Yes.
That's the 4th of July. It's celebrated every year. But they still had slaves. Now, the thing about the war in America, the thing that I find particularly of interest is that the Americans fought to enact this very freedom that the country had for other people. Meaning they said, no. This issue of slavery, this one can't happen.
Yes.
Okay? A civil war, a war was fought on that particular matter. Even as it was fought, and there was a 13th Amendment, which came later, 18 something or the other. We got into the 20th century, people of color were still being treated as though they were still slaves in that very America. This is the process. Today, the discussion that is had is systemic racism, where the system has over time entrenched a certain element of racism within its system, so that on the face of it and the conversations around it, it seems like everybody is equal, but not really. Now, then comes the word affirmative action. That's why the 2/3, as you put it very eloquently, the 1/3 gender rule. It's affirmative action. Why? Because if you simply leave it to the whims of the vote of the Mwananchi, it will not happen, and yet it is desirable. Okay, my question now. When you look at the trajectory of how we as Kenyans, we as Africans living in Kenya now of Kenyan citizenship, have handled our independence, and how we have interacted with the power and wealth that comes with these positions we have had, are we handling it well on behalf of our fellow citizens? Because at the back of our minds, we know what ought to be done. We have a constitution. But we have a problem with enacting it. So, do we need a situation where Kenyans fight with each other so that this thing is enacted? And if we are to fight, what sort of fight should we have so that we know what ought to be done, but there are people who are clearly dismantling it? How then do we get this thing to actually work for the people it was intended for, the lowly and the downtrodden?
Charles, you speak very eloquently too, and I think you're right in a lot of respects. The thing is, like you put it, actually our difficulties are they are systemic in nature. Like I said earlier, we acquired independence. We said we have self-rule, but we never understood what it meant. The people who were our, the champions of self-rule at the time, probably at the back of their minds, they were admiring the lajis that went with the Muzungu. So they were saying this should be ours rather than theirs.
Self-rule means we get direct access.
Yeah, it is our turn to eat. And that is what exactly is happening. So that, look, our education system, for instance. Our education system is exclusive and exclusionary, so that we start sieving people from the bottom, from the earliest level of childhood. As they grow, you are having fewer and fewer people who are able to achieve or to reach certain opportunities to achieve their self-fulfillment or self-actualization.
Yeah.
Yes. So that the systems, whether it's educational, whether it is health, and many others, have been crafted in such a way that it's the higher you go, the more privileged you are, and the people who are downtrodden have been made to believe that that is their fate. That's why you find that they believe more in religion, that God is a God of the poor. So people feel like they are happy being poor. They are there for God's people, and their riches and wealth are in heaven, not here on earth. I think that's the problem we have, and you see a lot of many churches in most poor neighborhoods in this country. If you asked a Mwananchi or at the grassroots level, what do they want? They probably will tell you, oh, Charles or Eric or Harun will talk for us. They understand what we need. So they have surrendered their sovereignty, not willingly, but unwittingly in a sense, because of the structure of the education. I don't mean formal education, but the political education that we have gone through. So that perhaps as an answer to that is to make devolution work, and devolution should be such that they have meaningful political education, meaningful rights-based education at the grassroots level. You see a little bit of it happening in Nairobi. You have the kinds of bunge la wananchi. You have social centers, social rights centers,
social justice centers.
Social justice centers, and all the kind. But I think I would like to see more of that at the grassroots level. But what does the government do? The government clamps down on them because they think that people are being radicalized. That's why recently you may have seen in the media some young people of the Bunge la Mwananchi were actually being taken to court to be charged with being members of Bunge la Mwananchi, that they are radicalizing or they are planning to commit crime. When the people who actually meet and formally commit crime sit in big offices like in the Treasury, in State House, in Parliament, those are the real systemic criminals. Unfortunately, we criminalize the freedom of thought of the Mwananchi. So it is important that the citizen have the courage to engage meaningfully. But unfortunately, in terms of the political leadership, and this is something that I have no answer for really, is that if you look at elective positions, whether it's MCAs or in the National Assembly or Senate, you will find that most of the people that are elected are people who were either retired public servants at high levels. They go back to their villages and get elected because they have managed to bribe people, or because they have been able to employ a few of their neighbors, and therefore they are seen as our boys, our girls.
Our saviors.
Our saviors. So you will find that we have, even the governors, I was forgetting, that indeed one of the reasons you see that corruption, even at the county governments, is rearing its head in a very significant way, is because we have people who were trained from the national level, so their logic, their thinking, their perception is as good as that one of the guys sitting in Nairobi, not that it's at the grassroots level. So that's one of the many problems we have. You see people coming to Nairobi, they are themselves apparently elected leaders, but their notion, their understanding, their perception, their planning is elitist completely.
Let's take a break on that note. 28 minutes to 8, Kenya's biggest conversation. Harun Ndubi is the co-convener of the Kenya to Itakayo Assembly. He's here. We are talking about dialogue and why dialogue is important for the country, and what kind of shape or head or tail this dialogue should actually have.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.